Hi guys, it's me. I'm back for a second time, even though I said it would probably be the other video would probably be the first and last time I talk about Hero Wars, but things happen and got me so pissed off enough to make yet another video. This one's going to be a short one, and it's mostly regarding what to do if you ever consider changing guilds, changing servers, moving from one to another. It can be an arduous process, and for most players, you only get to do this once in terms of server change. Subsequent server changes are going to cost you money, and not a small sum at that. It's, I think, at least 15 USDs or thereabouts. I can't remember the exact amount, but still. Well, so essentially the gist of today's videos will be about how you're going to choose the right guild for yourself in Hero Wars. Okay, so to start off with, I'm just going to be doing the Great Storm event on the sidelines. But to start off with, at the individual level, you're going to want to, make sure that you understand what you want, basically, because different people at different points of time in their so-called their Hero Wars development, so to speak, you're going to have different expectations and different needs of your what you can do, what you want to do, all those kind of things. So all this is going to differ from person to person. It's not going to be the same for everybody. So basically at the start, if you're going to reach out to a new guild and contact them saying that, hey, I'm interested, I want to join your guild, it's just like forging a contract at the workplace. It's your new job. You got to understand what the expectations are, what they can offer you, what you can offer them. You got to manage this and negotiate accordingly. This, why I put it in this way, is because it's something that I made mistakes at very fairly recently, and it's gotten me a bit annoyed and fed up. But personal details aside, to put it bluntly, is that if you're gonna join a guild, and make sure they not just bring you in just for your power, for just use you as a temporary stepping stone, and then they'll ditch you once you're done, or you go in and you don't get what you're promised or what you expect. And it is those kind of scenarios that it can turn out very ugly, because people won't last long in a place where you don't want to be, or you don't get the things that you were promised. It's just simply not fair to both parties when this kind of things play out. So basically, that's the general idea. Is that it's always ideal to seek out a communications channel. Maybe sometimes you're leaving other guilds out of spite, out of hatred. I don't know. I mean, people leave for all sorts of reasons. But the bottom line is that if you want to settle down for the long run, you better make sure that you're going to be happy with what you're given. And if you're not happy, then it's time to consider your options. So additionally, I think knowing well, where you belong and how you're going to fit in is something that's key and important as well. So, for example, if you're looking to join, if you started on a server, I don't know what server they're on up now, up to level 200, 300 maybe, and then you join a server on, let's say, server one, single-digit guilds, and if you expect to win and perform equally at that level, that's not going to happen, because you can't expect a 200k power player to go in and start winning with like single heroes against max out teams at 1.2 million hero power and max out patterns and whatnot. That's just something that's not going to happen. So you got to size up, and ready yourself. Are you ready for the expectations of those guilds that are more competitive on earlier servers in the game, because you're going to be up against people who have been playing for this game longer than you have, and by virtue of that fact, they're going to have more power and sorts of things. If you haven't been whaling or you haven't been spending money. And totems as well, it's quite clear in that regard. If you want to compete at the same totem level, you also got to have, well, for lack of a better word, you got to have equal totems or at least comparable power. You're not going to see 1-star totems winning against 6-star totems. 4-star, 5-star, maybe you stand a chance, but probably not a very high win rate. But these are the kind of considerations you need to take and adapt for yourself and decide what's good for you and what's not. All right. So generally speaking, for those whales with max out all totems, I think you're pretty good. You don't need to worry about that. But for heroes, on the other hand, I think this is where the variety is a lot larger, and there are many different things that can make or break your hero offensives. And one thing to note also is that offensive versus defensive teams can be very different in nature. And if, of course, the objective of offense is that you need to win in 2 minutes, whereas for defensive, you don't need to win. You just need to hold out and outlast the other team for 2 minutes. So that's where you start to see control teams coming in, like Polaris, Arachne, all those kind of other variations where you get timeouts rather than straight up wins. All right, so those are the things you need to consider as well. Now, for the guild, one thing I've realized after playing this game for 2 years, honestly, is that when you start off with a guild, and if everyone in the guild, all 30 players, are just only relying on the in-game chat, well, let me just say that if you're going for a highly competitive guild that is very active in guild wars, Clash of Worlds, and you want results out of that, I wouldn't recommend using the in-game chat because it simply doesn't suffice to satisfy the real-time communication needs. Like for example, there are some points in time where maybe you're out on the commute, on the train, on the bus or whatever, and you're playing Hero Wars on the mobile, and typing isn't that convenient. But if you can use maybe channels like Discord, voice call, the kind of thing, just to get some instructions in, do what kind of things, and sometimes getting in touch with people, no one keeps the Hero War game browser up all day 24/7, but Discord and the other notifications, those things, they do allow you to do so. So it's ideal for any self-respecting competitive guild to have a separate communication channel, and personally I would always go for Discord as a preference. Now moving on, what you would look for in a good guild, assuming that you want to be in one, you're going for a competitive guild and not a casual one. It's basically a guild leadership. In any top tier guild, you will need to have multiple leaders and generals for each tasking. Now the reason for this is very simple, because in Hero Wars, each guild you have a maximum of 30 people. Now imagine this, one person managing a group of 30 people, and in a video game, yeah, sure, it's just a game, but why take this so seriously? But if you want results, sometimes this is necessary. And when it comes to very competitive, high stakes gameplay like Clash of Worlds, sometimes some members may need a little bit more babysitting than others. Maybe some are not so intelligent or not so able with the heroes. They don't really know how to use it well. And then there are some of those whales who spend money but don't really know what to do. And that's where some babysitting is involved. You need to hold their hands, guide them through, explain to them what needs to be done. So on a general basis, I would say that for a single guild member, or a single general rather, to babysit up to 4 or 5 other people in the guild, I think that's a bit on the high side. And ideally you're going to want people to be at least autonomous in their attacks. They know what to do and know how to use their heroes on their own. But the reality is that this is not something that you might see in a fairly casual web-based game like Hero Wars. But still, with things like Clash of Worlds, Guild War attacks, and things that happen on a daily basis with time commitment, as I mentioned in my other video, generally speaking, I'll say a ratio of 1 to 5, 1 to 4, at least 4 or 5 generals in any guild with 30 people should be a good enough number. And of course, the more the better. I mean, too many cooks may spoil the broth, but in a sense that you don't need members with the general role, but you just need people who are leaders on their own right. They can know how to manage, they know how to play the game by themselves. And if other members reach out and there's no general online, at least some of these members can still be counted on. So they don't need the general role. That's just a name only. They just need to be trusted on and counted on upon. Right. So that's the key thing that you've been looking for in a good guild. And of course, part and parcel of that, aside from the raw leadership, is that you need the motivation and drive to win. You cannot have members in a competitive guild that simply can't be fucked to play the game and win. It's like, imagine like 29 out of 30 of your group members are taking, Clash of Worlds seriously, and one guy is attacking all the Asian spots with one hero, no pets, and just deliberately charging the Ishmaels up. And, it's safe grounds to kick, because this guy is not only is he not contributing to the team, he's actually ruining it, is harming the team rather than contributing to it. And that's not something that you want to have in a guild, because any guild that puts up with or tolerates with members that are contributing negatively, it's the same as a job. Like, would you want to be working with freeloaders all the way while they take all the credit and you get nothing in return? Like, no way. No one in their right mind would stand up for that. So of course, basically, you don't want to be in a guild where you're hard carrying every single other person. That's ridiculous. And of course, the individual attitude of its members matters, as mentioned. Not only the motivation and drive to win, but also bothering to learn how to do better, use of combat training, not making stupid mistakes, as I covered in my other lengthy video. Manual title play, it's a bit challenging for some. I've heard that the general demographic of Hero Wars seems to be catered to people who are in the less computer or less tech savvy ages, and I don't know, maybe they're just accustomed to automating all their fights all the way, which, as I've mentioned again in the other video, it's a recipe for disaster. But in good guilds, you still want people to really exercise their Titan plays manually, especially against light totem teams, right? So that's probably something to look out for as well in a good guild. And of course, it goes without saying, proactivity, you're going to need people completing all their Guild War and the Clash of Worlds attacks without having to need to nag at them. So Now, case in point, right, the guild that I originally left yogurt for and I joined recently. So long story short was that, it wasn't the guild that I wanted to join. It's like more like the satellite guild, the sister guild. And, I told the guild master, hey, I'm okay with this so long as there are no slots. I'm okay with standing in, but if there are slots, I would very much like to move to the main guild. So that's where my expectations came in. And when I joined this guild, I was expecting at least minimally gold, maybe position 2, position 3. And what I found out was that they were position 4 or 5 until I joined, and then they were position 3 in the last week. Thanks to my contribution as well. Obviously, not being very humble here, but you get the point. So, and the thing that really put me off the most was that throughout the whole week, in 5 days of attacks, there were a total of 6 people who did not show up on each different days to make their attacks. So you're talking about 12 wasted attacks and directly 240 and more because of the capture bonuses, points lost in Guild War. And if not for that, honestly, I think we could have stood to win, second place or third place, or rather a stable second place finish in Gold League, but so many inactive attacks, so many dumb mistakes on losses as well, a lot of lack of manual Titan play, a lot of stupid hero attacks that end up in losses. And it wasn't just Guild Wars, it was Clash of Wars as well. And I went and documented this to use as so-called, statistics and evidence. And Clash of Worlds, Monday to Wednesday, we had 3 days to make your attacks. And the guild had 26 active players, and 3 of them didn't even use their hero attacks over a 70-hour period for Clash of Worlds. And meanwhile, they're making their guild wars, they're doing their activity, they're doing their Titanite daily, and they can't even pay attention to Clash of Worlds in the very last week of the season, which is also the most critical because that's where you get the most points from. And so, like, when you see this kind of things, all I can say is, if unless you can put up with a guild that has moderate to semi-inactive presence, like maybe a silver guild thing, but a gold guild with semi-inactive presence, it's not going to last very long, honestly. Yeah, people aren't going to put up with that for too much longer unless they don't have anywhere else better to go. But the reality is that there are many servers, there are many guilds out there, there are many better places where you can concentrate like-minded people with similar goals rather than have you yourself as a dedicated player having to carry or pick up the burden from other people. No, I don't think anyone wants to do that. So that's the general idea. And so the whole reason why I'm choosing to just up and leave at this point in time is because, well, my expectations weren't satisfied. I was promised a slot in the long run, but apparently, someone had other ideas and other plans for me, and nope, sorry, I'm not putting up with that. I went through a few hours and conversations, and I waited for 4 days for it, and it didn't come. And I just feel I think I have a fair right to feel very angry with the situation because I never committed, I never made any promises. I asked for certain things and it wasn't given. And when I went in and I joined on my first day, they dumped a whole lot of expectation on me without first clarifying if I was okay with it. And I just feel cheated about the whole situation. And no, with that being said, it's about time for me to just migrate to another server right now. Okay, and essentially, well, I'm full and willing to pay for the cost of migrating. Alright, it's about 2,000 Japanese yen because sometimes paying the money is better than having to put up with someone else's shit. Alright, so with that, I hope it gives you an idea of what things that you want to do when you choose the guild for yourself in Hero Wars. Thank you very much.